So before we head out to sea, there are these two trainers who are just begging for an ass kicking. Wait, you'll have a heart attack? Well, that is definitely one of the weirdest greetings I've ever seen from a rival trainer. Naturally, there are lines like, you know, I like shorts, they're comfy and easy to wear, and hi, my boyfriend is cool, but a heart attack? Where'd that come from? Imagine if I met someone on the street and I stopped him and I said, hey, you're gonna get AIDS! Same thing. And while we're on the subject of NPC dialogue, I've rewatched a few videos of mine, and it seems that there are a few lines when you defeat the trainer that come back really often. So here's a little drinking game for you in case you ever want to have a Let's Play Pokémon Red marathon or something. I don't know why you would do that, but if you really want to do that, then take your favorite wine or whiskey or beer. If you take beer though, take a Canadian one, because there's another name for American beer, and that is water. Oh come on, don't make that face, that was just a joke! But yeah, take your favorite alcoholic beverage and watch my videos, and whenever you see a trainer upon being defeated, say, not good enough. Those 3 words, not good enough. Take a drink. You are going to get plastered in record time. On another note, I am turning 25 this Friday, and you know, since I'm turning 25, that's a quarter of a century, jeez. You think I might actually want to grow up and stop playing Pokemon, maybe? Nah, just kidding. I'm not gonna stop playing these games. They're just really great, and that's the hallmark of a great franchise. There's something in there for everyone, whether you're 6 or 66. Okay, now we can finally be able to head out to the Seafoam Islands. And you know, one thing I was having apprehensions about when I began this LP was going to be really difficult dungeons in terms of finding your way around the place, like the Seafoam Islands. I even mentioned it explicitly when I announced that I was beginning this LP on Libeldra. I was saying I'm a little worried about, you know, looking like an ass in places like the Seafoam Islands and Victory Road, because they're just like those big mazes that are several stories tall and everything. And I said, yeah, I'm worried, but it's so far away that there's no use in worrying about it right now. Well, 5 months and 70 videos later, and I am finally going to the Seafoam Islands. So what looked like the distant future back then, well, we're there now! But there is one powerful ally that I will have for this upcoming battle against the bowels of the Seafoam Islands, and that is, of course, Cerebee's Pokéearth. Now remember, it didn't exist back when I began this LP. It only came about, I don't remember, was it in December? Doesn't matter. So back then, I didn't have a resource where I could, you know, look at maps from the game in order to find my way around. Now that is not true, and before I enter the Seafoam Islands, I will make sure to check out the maps so that I know exactly what to do. Because the Seafoam Islands, if you remember, it's basically push that boulder in the hole, fall down in the hole, push that boulder, find your way back up, and over and over and over again. There are several boulders that you have to push down several floors in order to stop the current in the lower areas. And once you've done all that, then you can face Articuno. It's a lot more complicated than Zapdos, where you just had to walk around the power plant and suddenly, whoop, there it was, Zapdos. Now it's really a big puzzle for a weaker legendary birds, oddly enough. The strongest one is the easiest to get. Now obviously they didn't intend on having Zapdos be the strongest one, but that's how it turned out. Articuno and Moltres just weren't very good back then. They've gone through a lot of effort to try and make Moltres viable over the course of several generations. Well, they didn't really start until Crystal, where it finally got access to Flamethrower, because all it had before then was Fire Blast. I've mentioned this several times before, so there's no point in coming back on it. But for Articuno, well, they really dropped the ball on that one. Not that there was much to do in the first place. You've got a Pokemon with a decidedly defensive orientation, but it's Ice Flying, one of the worst typings out there. Not quite as bad as Magcar goes, but Ice Flying is still completely worthless as a defensive typing, and because of that, I say that if there is ever such a thing as an underused legendary, this is it. Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Articuno with not much but support moves, and naturally there's Stealth Rock, just chopping your HP in half the moment you come into play. So yeah, the stats are as crappy as you're gonna get from a Pokemon with a base stat total of 580. But what about the moves? Well, as I said, you've got a lot of support moves. Reflect, Roar, Heal Bell, Roost, Substitute, Toxic, and when it comes to offense, well, not that it really has the stats to sustain a decent offensive aspect, but when it comes to offense, there's Ice Beam, and Ice Beam, and did I mention there was Ice Beam? Oh yeah, there's Ice Beam too. Oh yeah, Hidden Power! I was about to forget about that, but everything gets Hidden Power, so it's not like it really matters all that much. It's just that Articuno will love it much more than others because it's got nothing else but Ice Beam otherwise. Bottom line, Articuno is a lot better in-game than it is competitively. If you want to use it competitively, use it with the utmost caution, and if it ends up being allowed in the new underused, well, knock yourself out because it can be quite a potent wall there due to the sheer amount of stats it has. Now that I'm on Route 19, I think it's worth talking about the sea routes in each game. I've mentioned that before in Written Rants, but for those of you who haven't read these, I'm going to repeat myself because, well, I think it's an interesting subject to cover. So in this generation, there's not much water to go through. Route 19, Route 20, and Route 21. That's it. 3 sea routes out of 25. In Johto, well, it depends on what you define as Johto. Routes 26, 27, and 28 technically belong in Kanto since they're on that side of the map, but since they were newly introduced in Gold, Silver, Crystal, I'm going to count them as part of Johto because of that, just for the sake of argument. Not that any of them are sea routes, but I digress. So in Johto, you only got 2 sea routes, 40 and 41. So far we've got 3 out of 25 and 2 out of 19. So far so good. But in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, it really got a lot worse. And I mean a lot worse. I understand that the theme of the game was land versus sea and whatnot, but if you take a look at how many sea routes there are 34 routes in total, and 17 are sea routes. That's half of the game that takes place on water. Now, to their credit, they really tried to make this not as tedious as it could have been. They introduced dive spots, which personally I really liked. I really enjoyed going underwater and looking for hidden treasures and such. And they also introduced Wingull and Pelipper so that we wouldn't get too sick of Tentacool and Tentacruel. Of course, after 2 generations of nothing but that, we were sick of them, but it would have been a lot worse had Wingull and Pelipper not been there. So final verdict, there's way too much water, but it's not as bad as it could have been. And as for Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, by my count, there are 4 sea routes out of 30, so we're back in the norm set by the first 2 generations. Those 4 routes would be 219, 220, those on the way to Pal Park, 223 on the way to Victory Road in the Pokemon League, and 230, which links the fighting area, and I think it was the resort area that was directly east of it. Now I've crunched the numbers, but there are a few more things I'd like to say about the subject, but it's going to have to wait until next time. See you then.